who knows the industry as well as he does. For Brian, it's whether he can call the partner at midnight.
So?
They both came up with the same name, BDO.
Huh.
People who know BDO.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wall Street Journal Report. I'm Maria Bartiromo, the Wall Street Democrat who has the president's ear. We'll talk to him about the fiscal cliff, compromise, and the odds of a deal happening. America's energy independence and the environmentalist who says fracking is here to stay. But just how do we make it safe? We'll drill down to get some answers. And then the man who many in the technology world call the next Steve Jobs. You're probably already using something this quiet genius already invented. The Wall Street Journal Report begins right now.
This is America's #1 financial news program, The Wall Street Journal Report. Now, Maria Bartiromo.
Here's a look what's making news as we head into a new week on Wall Street. Corporate America had a strong message for President Obama this week. CEOs of more than a dozen of America's largest companies met with the president and warned that Washington must reach a deal to avoid the fiscal cliff. The president also sat down with congressional leaders and officially began negotiations. If Congress doesn't act, taxes on income, capital gains, dividends, and estates will all go up, and automatic spending cuts will kick in beginning on January 1st. This week, I spoke with Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles, authors of a deficit reduction plan about what needs to be done.
You can't tax your way out of this. You can't cut spending your way out of this. You can't grow your way out of it. So grab hold. It's going to be a rocky, rocky road.
So you're saying just closing the loopholes alone brings you at least $1 trillion?
Yeah, if you're willing to wipe out all of them, and that may not be politically feasible, but you can definitely solve a problem by broadening the base, simplifying the code, and getting rid of the tax expenditures.
It upsets me that you're worried that we're not going to get a deal, because that's how I felt.
Yeah, I think there's about a 1/3 probability we'll get a deal in the lame duck.
A third.
About a 1/3 that we'll go over the cliff and be able to reach a deal right afterwards, and that'll be okay. But there is that 1/3 chance that we won't, and we'll end up in chaos.
The markets for weeks and months have felt that no one would be dumb enough to let this happen. And now they can see that it is indeed possible, be as dull-witted as possible, that this could happen. And now they finally sobered up. They were playing it all to be done. No one would ever let this happen. It can't possibly happen. Well, Merry Christmas.
The markets had a case of the fiscal cliff nerves, among other things, and continued their decline during the week. Stocks are down about 5% since President Obama was reelected. Retail sales disappointed in October, down 0.3% for the month, as Americans spent less on a broad range of goods. Autos were particularly hit hard, and it's likely that Superstorm Sandy slowed business at the end of the month. Well, he is a rare breed, a Wall Street insider who has the president's ear. What is President Obama thinking these days, and what can we expect of the fiscal cliff negotiations? Robert Wolf is an outside advisor to President Obama, former president of investment banking at UBS, and is now CEO of the firm 32 Advisors. Robert, great to see you.
Great to be here, Maria.
Thanks so much for joining us. So you are a rare breed. You're a top Wall Street executive, but you have a very close relationship with the president. So talk to us about this drama over the fiscal cliff. Are we still in the posturing stage? How does this play out?
I hope it plays out with a deal. I would have probably put it around 80% a deal, but I would have sliced it this way. I would say 50% of that 80 is that they come up with like $60 billion, which is 6 months of the 10 years of the 1.2 trillion sequester.
Okay.
Okay? So something like that.
That's a drop in the bucket.
A drop in the bucket. So you could do that, and that would also, I would think if you're doing that, you would have to say, okay, and we're going to pass the debt ceiling. That gets you till March, April, and it gets the new Congress in, and it forms a good basis.
Now, what do you think about those reports on Friday that the White House is now in advanced talks to replace the sweeping cuts that to begin in January with a smaller package? Are they in advanced talks, essentially delaying some of the harder decisions until into 2013? It feels like the president's digging in. He doesn't want to give on this, not extending the tax cuts to the highest earners, and wants to take away the loopholes as well as raising taxes.
Yeah, I mean, that all-in approach, I think, is going to get tough to get the votes, the all-in approach. I mean, I understand the president feels that you have to tax the 2%. Because if you really look at the detail, if you don't extend it for the top 2%, that gets you about $750 billion over 10 years. And then if you do some of the itemized deductions, that can get you to the trillion.
And he wants 1.6 trillion.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure, that, he has the chance of getting 1.6. That could be very difficult, would
Maybe
be my
that's
guess.
a negotiating tactic.
It could be.
Yeah.
I think they all play a little poker.
Exactly.
I'd rather be in the boat where we go to the Clinton era taxes from 35 to 39.6 than have this idea, Maria, of tax deductions cannot be itemized greater than 50,000, because the truth is the biggest hit on that is charity.
Yeah.
Okay, it's half of it.
People will give away less.
And I think that's not where this country is. The second part is mortgage deductions, and I don't think that's necessarily good for this country. And then the third thing is it hits state and local.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the three areas itemized deductions hit. So I'm not necessarily a fan of that.
You think the president feels like he has a mandate and basically, I mean, he said it, look, the majority of the people agree with me? Or do you think he's going to say, okay, I have to give just to show that I'm going to give the way the Republicans are going to try to give on revenue?
One, I think it's a couple different questions. I absolutely think he has a mandate. He did win. I don't think it's one of these scenarios where you do it my way, the highway at all. I think just the opposite. I think we had a lesson learned, okay, in 2011 on the debt ceiling, that you need both sides at the table. I think the president realizes entitlement reform has to be on the table, especially with Medicare. And so there's no question from where I sit that, yes, I think he has to stick to his guns on some of the things he believes in and what he's campaigned on. But I also think he understands for us to get to $4 trillion, okay, taxes are probably not more than 25% of that.
Right, right. How are these meetings going? I mean, the president has been meeting with top corporate leaders this week. He met with the labor leaders the day before, talking about the fiscal cliff. What's coming out of these meetings in your view? And what do your business colleagues say in terms of how he's conducting the meetings? Because a lot of times people would come on this program and say, the president's not listening. We don't have a voice at the table. Do they have a voice at the table?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think what's good about this is the private sector wants a voice at the table. I think the one mistake we all made during the debt ceiling is we were relatively quiet. And this is a time we can't be quiet. So one, I do think the private sector is going to have a larger voice. And I think that the House and the Senate and the president wants to hear from the private sector. Two, there may be different ways to skin the cat. There is not just one answer. We know the number's $4 trillion, but there's other answers. As far as the meetings are going, good. I mean, I'm going down there to see Valerie Jarrett and Gene Sperling with a group of other people. And what I hear is the meetings are going well. There's a good give and take. I have not heard about the meetings with Congress yet. But I think the business leaders that I heard from that came back and said, listen, there was a good two-way, and people know entitlement needs to be on. And the business leaders say they understand revenues need to be on. And most of them say, I am happy to pay, okay, going to the Clinton era 39.6, as long as it's balanced and there's spending cuts and we know where the money's going. I don't hear the business leaders yelling and screaming about taxes.
What I am hearing, though, is the yelling and screaming from investors over this uncertainty, lack of clarity on where the tax rates will be in 2013. The market's down 5% just in the last week. Since the election, the market's down 5%. Is that a fair statement? People are worried about this uncertainty and lack of clarity of where their tax rates are going to be next year?
I don't think that's that fair. I'll tell you why. Okay. I think the market's down 5% for a few reasons. One is Europe showed it's going back into a recession. Okay. Two, you had a change in China and leadership. We don't know necessarily what that means. Three, yes, the fiscal cliff's a part of it, but there's a good chance people think taxes will likely go up or deductions go down. And then this for a lot of people are selling because they have gains. Okay, I mean, so
year-end positioning.
Year-end positioning. But the other thing is I don't want to, be naive. A lack of clarity is not good.
All right, we'll leave it there. Robert, great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Maria.
Up next on the Wall Street Journal Report, we'll take you behind the potential big business of fracking, tapping into America's massive natural gas resources. What are the economic and environmental costs? And later, the California entrepreneur behind Twitter, how Jack Dorsey has changed the way we communicate. Now he's looking at how you use money. As we take a break, take a look at how the stock market ended the week. Back in a moment. Tapping into America's natural gas reserves. Is it going to mean an energy independent future? And is it safe? We are drilling down for answers right now with Fred Krupp. He is the president of the Environmental Defense Fund. Fred, good to have you on the program.
Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. So the International Energy Agency this week said that the U.S. will be the largest global oil producer in 2020. This is amazing. So tell me about the sea change in global energy flows today.
Well, it's great to have more American-made energy, but it's not good enough. We also need to modernize our energy grid. It's not good enough to just be the best at producing the energy of the last century. And we are going to spend a couple of $1 trillion modernizing the grid, and the question is how we do it. Hopefully, we do it in a way that protects us from cybersecurity risks, that makes the grid more resilient from storms, that facilitates energy efficiency and renewable energy, cleaner energy in the future.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think we all want to be energy independent. We want, you know, and we know that this country is rich in natural gas, but for the most part, people don't want it in my backyard. And yet, former GE CEO Jack Welch recently compared the potential in U.S. natural gas to the internet boom in terms of job creation and productivity increases. So how do you balance it? How do you balance the potential economic boom that we could see of fracking with the environmental impact?
Well, look, the economic advantages are obvious. We've created hundreds of thousands of jobs because of cheap natural gas. Electricity